It's easy to look at any indie horror game these days and tell yourself, I've seen this before. I've played this before. Why should I play this now? Withering Rooms doesn't make a strong first impression. The game's graphics are plain, and the presentation is simple, but there's still something about it. The volumetric ghostly lighting, the Baroque architecture, and the 19th century atmosphere of its levels. I can't help but immediately think back to how this game reminds me of old PlayStation 2 horror games you might have found in the stores years ago. How those games appeared basic, but they still surprised you with how the developers took your expectations and threw them back at the player, giving you unforgettable experiences. This raises a question. Is this yet another Unity horror experience that'll end up forgotten in some Let's Play? Or is this the kind of game that's willing to give you something different? Let's make a deal. You and me. I'll tell you, but on the condition that I'll tell you only just enough to pique your interest in playing the rest of the game on your own. Because where would the fun be in questions if you're only going to be given all the answers? Prologue starts with you controlling a young girl named Nightingale, waking up in a mysterious residence known as Moistine House. You can move around and interact with the environment. Basic stuff. However, in the very next room, you try interacting with something strange, only for the game to flat out tell you to start hiding. Now. Alright, stealth mechanics. Kinda strange how the game wastes no time introducing that. You sneak by and get your first taste of the game's lore. Doesn't seem like your character was the only person who got trapped here. You are then introduced to another mechanic, peeking through doors. This naturally extends from the stealth mechanic, so sure. You keep sneaking by until you hit another lore entry. A spell is cast into the garden, and the key into the garden is nailed to the back of someone named David? Who's David? Oh, I see. Alright, so we'll sneak to grab the key, and we'll use it to open the door that stood out in the hallway. Now it's clear that items will be key to accessing new areas. A white sigil indicates a safe area. Good to know. We run ahead and access the entrance hall, filled with other young girls, and speak to the one who stands from the rest. You look lost. First time in the dream. I'm Becca. I'm afraid you've stumbled into something you probably shouldn't have. We're having a sort of celebration to welcome a new member for our little club. You see, we're witches. Becca explains that in this world, the dream, magic actually exists. She acknowledges your confusion and tells you to meet the first witch. Alright then, things are already pretty weird. Becca encourages you to grab a piece of cake from the party and, oh, cool, you can pick up items. Well then, let's talk to the first witch. Maybe she'll help us understand just what kind of game this is. You are not supposed to be here. Are you a patient here at Moistine Private Asylum? Sure. Did you come from the gatehouse? I think so. You made it all the way here with no assistance. I don't know. Let's just say yeah. Liar. Nightingale wakes up in Moistine House. Again. Somehow. Hey, a cleaver. You know what? This is definitely what we would want after being immediately immolated. 4 physical damage, 1 bleeding, 6 wait, what? Well, we can definitely defend ourselves now. Oh, we can even dodge roll? This is still a horror game, right? Oh look, Some random woman appeared out of nowhere. I'm terribly sorry if I frightened you by just appearing like that. I am Margaret Blackett, and I share administration of this asylum with my father, Dr. Robert Blackett. Your name is Nightingale, isn't it? Let me first deeply apologize to you for being set on fire as soon as you arrived here. Thanks, Margaret. Margaret explains that a unique phenomenon is occurring at Moistine House. An unending dream is pulling anyone sleeping at the residence, trapping them in a fantastical world shared by others. A day in the real world becomes weeks in the dream. Even death in the dream is meaningless, as they'll simply wake anew once more. That's right. What makes Withering Rooms unique is that it's a roguelite horror game. You'll be exploring the house, finding key items, battling monsters, and struggling to move the story forward. Die, and you'll lose most of your inventory and start over again. That might sound frustrating, but don't worry. Withering Rooms is the kind of roguelite that presents multiple meta progression options. Like, for example, quest-related items will always be permanent. Even better, there are ways to keep some of your favorite items. Making offerings to shrines will help Nightingale remember those items, allowing you to build up advantages over multiple cycles, and there will be plenty of items to find. Bandages to stop bleeding, first aid kits for healing, and coins to buy even more items, if you happen to find the right NPC along the way. And rings. Rings? Yeah, rings. This isn't just a horror roguelite, it's a horror roguelite ARPG. This ring I found early on has a 5% chance of doubling my damage, which scales with luck. Yup, there are even character stacks in the game. Reading anything you can grab will be important, because lore entries not only expand on the events in the game, they also clue the player into important mechanics. Perception affects your ability to see hexes and illusions. Poise affects if you get stun locked or not. Speed makes you faster, and of course, luck affects the likelihood of finding rare items and coins. Equipment like rings might enable the player to consider crafting unique builds. Wearing this dress increases my luck. So does wearing this headpiece. If I'm willing to put everything together, I can enable a build where I skill into luck and proc the double damage effect often enough to make it worth using in fights. Any advantage is worth considering, as you'll need to deal with the various dangers you'll encounter in the residence. There's quite a bestiary here. Zombie maids, shambling beasts, towering giants, and of course, various bosses. The game's combat definitely leans into being an action RPG, where you have to dodge roll and use charge attacks. You can expand your arsenal further by using powerful spells and consumable items, which you can reliably accrue from the game's crafting system. Yeah, on top of everything else, there's a crafting system here too. Using mats you'll find from all the different drawers, boxes, and chests littered around the environment. So it's like a horror, roguelite, action RPG, Souls-like, survival crafting, Resident Evil style Metroidvania. Alright, I know what you must be thinking. Listen, there's no way. A game looking like this can't juggle between all these mechanics and still be fun at the end of the day. Something has to break. But that is the most surprising thing about Withering Rooms. It didn't break. It works. Everything works with each other. And I think there are two big reasons why this is the case. Big reason number one, the game does a good job of introducing the player with all these mechanics intuitively. For example, eventually you'll meet the Filthy Wretch, who will give you several quests teaching the player key mechanics, like using spells and items that will add cursedness to the player. Too much cursedness and you'll take Curse Rot, eventually killing your run. More importantly, these tutorials don't really feel like tutorials. For example, the Filthy Wretch isn't telling you to do things in an exact order. Eventually, he'll give you the opportunity to craft your own spells, and the player will have time and the space to experiment freely. This red spell creates a trap on a door. Okay, let's go see how that works. Oh, okay, that's cool. I wonder how I'll take advantage of this. The game explains the basics, but always gives the player the freedom to learn the advanced stuff at their own pace. Moreover, these tutorials actually feel like a natural extension of the game. Margaret told you to find the filthy wretch from the beginning, and every character is an opportunity to expand the player's understanding of what exactly is going on. It's interesting to find these characters and see why they're stuck here, and what they're doing in this strange world. This leads us into big reason number 2 for why all these mechanics work together. Every mechanic feeds into each other. Remember when I brought up that curse mechanic? Well, it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. The more curse you have, the more you'll be able to see hidden things. And after exploring the back of Blazin House, you'll encounter a hedge maze that has several altars spewing curse. Why? Because as it turns out, you can use curse to your advantage to access areas you normally can't. Damn, curse isn't so bad. Maybe I'll pump up my maximum curse stat so I won't have to worry about hitting curse rot so soon. So the spells I can craft could become more useful. And the items that synergize with cursedness become good. But I'll lose all the synergy on death. Okay, I'll just make sure to remember any items relevant to my curse playstyle. I'll have to spend resources and give up anything else that isn't curse related, but I think it's worth it. This is my choice. In my opinion, this is the glue that holds Withering rooms together. The developer, Moonless Formless, has done what a lot of other developers struggle to do: player agency. There are both strong advantages and disadvantages for almost any choice the player makes in this game. Do you want to do Margaret's quest early? Or go explore somewhere else? Do you want to use spells or melee weapons? Do you want to fight monsters head on? Or avoid confrontation? Do you want to craft healing items or rely on grabbing as much loot as possible to buy them instead? They are all valid choices. And they are made interesting because of all the various mechanics that feed into each other, forcing the player to make compromises, so the player is always thinking ahead to choose carefully. It also helps that the game is just plain fun. The way enemies react to being hit is satisfying. Running around grabbing all manner of loot feels rewarding. That Resident Evil style dopamine rush of unlocking shortcuts in new areas never gets old. And the story is always pushing the player forward. For example, at some point, you'll need to go down to the basement. But the basement is dark and way too difficult to navigate without some sort of light source. Okay, so in traditional horror game fashion, you'll need to figure out a way around this. So you go ahead and explore until you meet a strange character at the back of Blazin House.
I am the Vicar of St. Eli's, the nearby parish church. Or at least, it used to be nearby. It feels like it has been so long since I've seen it. Never mind all that. You've been in the house recently. Positively reeking with evil, isn't it? As a warrior of Christ, I had once thought to save the poor souls in there. Now I wish only to escape. You may think it cowardly, but spend a few more nights in here and you'll see. I see you staring at my lamp. I'd be happy to give it to you. But I need proof that you are a valiant warrior of Christ, and not in league with the foul beasts in that house.
He wants a corrupted heart. So, you explore until you finally win a fight against one of the stronger monsters in the game. Now equipped with the lamp, you venture into the darkness, fighting even more dangerous enemies. At some point, you'll need to reactivate the boiler to turn the light back on, prompting you to enter a combination. How do you get the combination? Well, a note can be found in the very same room.
Sweet Millie, dead girl. In the dark, I can almost see her. Our number game, west to east, in white lead. The other two are where we laid our heads.
Despite this game being a horror, roguelite, action, RPG, Souls-like, survival crafting, Resident Evil style Metroidvania, it still has one foot firmly in its survival horror roots. No matter how much looting and RPG levels you gained, There will still be puzzles that demands the player to pay attention. You will still have to read and watch your environment carefully. That's what makes this game fun, and this is what makes this game unique. I don't think I could call this game a survival horror in the same way I call Rule of Rose a survival horror. It definitely has elements of survival horror, but Withering Rooms is its own beast. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I truly enjoyed playing this game during my playthrough. The gameplay is addicting, and the lore is so well thought out that I went out of my way to read everything, to find everything. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that, because despite this game only having under 300 user reviews at the time of this video, it still garnered a very positive rating on Steam, and you can tell a lot of passion went into this game. In an interview with the horror gaming news site DreadXP and one of the developers of Moonless Formless, they explained that, yeah, so I've been thinking about this game for like a decade. I never thought I could actually make it. But, back in college, I was really obsessed with it. I know it's a little late to be obsessed with like V.C. Andrews, but I've never read them before. My wife was like, hey, you should read these. So, I read a bunch of that kind of gothic, trapped in an old mansion kind of literature back in college. We've Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, which was super influential for me. I decided on a whim to make a prototype, just to see if it would be fun. And so, what I did was that I took all the old clock tower from the Super Nintendo sprites, and kind of backgrounds and stuff like that. And in Unity, I just put together a prototype, this kind of mansion that would rearrange itself each night. And it took like a year. I kept thinking of these new mechanics. I sent it to some friends, and they liked it. They liked it a lot. So I was like, this is cool. I'm going to put this in my back pocket. I'm never going to make it because I'm not an artist. I'm an engineer by trade. So like, my day job is writing software. So the idea of me making a game seemed impossible. Thankfully, that idea did become possible. Withering Rooms was originally an early access game released in 2022, and, looking at the game's news page, seems to have had consistent updates up until its release in April of 2024. Like for example, in November of 2022, Moonless Formless released a version 0.88 melee combat overhaul, which aimed to significantly improve how combat worked up until that point. Or, when they released entire new swaths of content, featuring new regions, loot, and bosses. Even some of the seasonal outfits they released can now be obtained in the final game by a particular NPC. That's something that really stood out to me about this game. What begins as an adventure where Nightingale is just trying to escape the dream, starts taking twists and turns. I think you'll appreciate just how much optional content the developer put into this game. You don't have to do any of it, but it exists anyways. But what is that content, and what are those twists? Like I promised, I've told you just enough to pique your interest. Now, it's up to you if you want to find the rest of the answers out on your own. At the time of this video, Withering Rooms is being sold normally for around 24 USD. My playthrough took about 20 hours to complete, and that's after choosing a particular ending, ignoring certain areas, and not even touching the entire New Game Plus mode, which actually has new things for the player to check out. In terms of content, I'd argue there's no cause for concern. So I believe that if you are the kind of person who wants to play a game that feeds into your curiosity, if what you've seen does interest you, I would highly recommend it. I think Withering Rooms is absolutely worth your time. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm just here to formally announce that this channel has hit over 100 subscribers. Woo! Yeah. I do appreciate it. And unfortunately, I have to coincide that news with the fact that I do have to go off for quite a bit. Life is ramping up, so I'll have to disappear again. But in the meantime, maybe you guys will be interested in my other content. If you're looking for another game recommendation, I think you'll be very interested in my video about Lunacid. If you're looking for something a little bit more long form, my Metallic Child video will probably interest you. And if you're looking for something that is a little bit different, I think my video on Lords of the Fallen will definitely be worth a watch. Otherwise, I'm going to have to disappear, and I'm sure to come back in 8 months and drop a video out of nowhere. Until then, I'll be seeing you guys later.